Elon Musk joined the government to fix the national debt crisis because he was convinced that the government of the United States is headed for bankruptcy just like a human would do. If you borrow too much money and you owe too much interest, sooner or later you will default. He laid his strategy multiple times on Joe Rogan interview, and it made sense. If you look at this graph, it's very clear that the government is in crisis. Somewhere around here, a crisis has happened and the debt ballooned to $37 trillion as of 2025. And it was a matter of time before it gets much worse than that. So he joined the government to help the government by reducing the extra expenses. In his mind, the strategy was very simple and straightforward. There is a lot of wasteful spending. If I join the government, I can easily cut all of this wasteful spending and we can prevent a default. If you're spending $6.7 trillion, on the other hand, you are making less than $5 trillion, then the government has to borrow from somewhere the extra cash, and that's an extra almost $1.9 trillion. This number keeps rising. This year, it is going to be $2.1 trillion. So the math was very simple. If we continue with this deficit, then it's a matter of time before we run out of money. Imagine you're making $100,000, but you're spending $150,000. You can mathematically predict that at some point in the future, you are going to default. Elon Musk is the most qualified person to fix this problem because his entire entrepreneurship career was about cutting costs. He started SpaceX and cut costs to bring down the cost of sending the rockets. Before SpaceX, NASA would spend $400 million to send a rocket to space. He realized that there is a lot of wasteful spending, especially why don't we have reusable rockets? Why do we build a rocket that is super expensive and just simply throw it in the ocean? If we can turn that rocket into a reusable rocket, then we are saving ourselves hundreds of millions of dollars and in the long run, billions of dollars. And that's why SpaceX became the most successful space company in the world. Building a car company is almost impossible, but because he could lower down the cost of building cars, he could manufacture Teslas in the United States within one giant gigafactory that allowed him to lower down costs. And that's something not a single other automaker can be proud of. Ford manufactures a lot of its components outside the United States. The same thing you can say about any other automaker. But Elon Musk built one giant gigafactory when there is a long line of automated production line that would make it possible within the United States. So his strategy was very simple. I can get into the government and do the exact same thing. We can make certain agencies much more productive. We can get rid of agencies that are unnecessary, and we can easily lower down the cost or the spending of the government by $2 trillion. A lot of people did not agree with Elon Musk because people think that somehow government spending is always good. But not all government spending is a good spending. It can be really bad spending. The government can build bridge to nowhere. Yes, it's a bridge that the government built. Yes, you took money from the taxpayers, but this bridge is serving nobody, which is why it's a bridge to nowhere. Should you build it? Well, absolutely not. It's a waste of money. The government is filled with agencies that are absolutely unnecessary. Millions of people work in those agencies, and you have to spend billions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, to sustain them. These agencies make sure that everybody follows regulations, but pretty often there are plenty of regulations that are absolutely unnecessary. You can do everything in one single agency, but instead we have 5 different agencies, which means that now in order for you to approve a certain business license, you have to go to 5 different agencies, which increases the cost and makes business extremely inefficient. Which is why if we get rid of these agencies, we can deregulate the entire market. On one side, we are saving plenty of money. On the other side, we're making it much easier to do business, which will boost business in the United States, which will end up to more taxes for the government, which will fix the debt problem. And that's why he started his Doge with $2 trillion pledge. But then when he joined the government, he realized that $2 trillion is too much. You cannot possibly do that no matter how hard you try. Which is why he revised his plan and said that we're going to save the government $1 trillion, and by deregulating the businesses, we are going to increase the government's revenue by an extra $2 trillion. So it gets us to the exact same position. Well, this plan sounds like it's supposed to work. He's giving up and leaving the Washington, and he no longer is going to be involved in politics and will no longer try to save the American government and fix the national debt. So why exactly the man who built some of the most fascinating companies of the 21st century is giving up? Why didn't his plan work out? If Elon Musk cannot solve this problem, then there is nobody who can solve that. Is the problem is already out of control? Is it too late to fix this problem that he gave up and left Washington? Let's take a look at that. The first mistake is that in business, you're accountable to shareholders, but in government, you're accountable to voters, Congress, and the court. And that's a fundamental difference, because when you're running Tesla or SpaceX, all you have to care about are what shareholders are thinking about, and they have their mentality and their mindset and their goals. So as long as you make them happy, you can do everything you want in your company. You want to slash the number of employees, get rid of some products, boost revenue, cut expenses. You can do whatever you want and nobody can tell you no. You have the full authority to do whatever you want. But when it comes to the government, suddenly you're accountable to voters who elected you, and they don't necessarily want a very effective government. They literally just want a better thing for themselves. Imagine your employees want a better life. They would ask you to work harder? Would they ask you to cut their salaries? On one side, we have mandatory spending, and that is 70% of the entire spending. So we're talking about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And in order to make any kind of changes, you need 60% of the Senate to do that. Yes, in theory, you can do that with a simple majority of 51%, but if you don't want to filibuster, then you need 60% in the Senate. And that's something that Republicans don't have. So automatically, no matter how hard you try, you cannot already touch 70% of the entire spending. And that leaves you with discretionary spending of $1.7 trillion. Well, that's a lot of money. That's almost $2 trillion, the goal that Elon Musk set in front of himself. But what is discretionary budget? That is, $1 trillion of that is defense, and the other $700 billion is everything else. Cutting military spending is not an option, especially when the United States is going through multiple geopolitical challenges. On one side, you have a conflict in Europe. On the other side, you have a conflict in Southeast Asia. And then you have to maintain 1,000 military bases all across the globe. So that leaves you with $700 billion that you can possibly play around. Best case scenario, you can cut 10% of that, but that's just almost $100 billion in the best case scenario, probably something between $60 to $70 billion, which makes the goal of $2 trillion almost impossible. The second mistake he did is that the goals of the government and the business are completely different. When it comes to the business, the first goal is profitability. As long as you make the company profitable, you're good. Shareholders will love you. You don't have to ask them what exactly do they want, because you know that they want a profitable company. The second goal is, of course, stock prices. As long as the price of the stocks keeps rising, investors are happy, shareholders are happy. When you're buying stocks of a certain company, the stock goes up, you made a lot of money, you're avoiding inflation, you're getting rich and making plenty of money. By the way, if you want to start investing or you want to become a professional investor, make sure to check the first link in the description. So by cutting costs in your business and making it much more profitable, even if it means cutting costs or cutting some of the products that might be important but are unprofitable, might actually turn out to be great for shareholders. But when it comes to the government, that's not an option, because the job of the government to be inefficient. Imagine you have a business and you have two products in your business. One product is making you a lot of money and the second product is losing you money. So naturally, as a productive and smart CEO, you're going to cancel the product that is making you loss, and you will indirect those costs or those funds into the product that is making you a lot of money. But when it comes to the government, the job of the government is to make sure that society functions effectively. You're taking money from the people who are very, very effective and making a lot of money, and yet redistributing that wealth to people who are not making a lot of money. Government also builds infrastructure products that are not necessarily profitable, but they're very important to the well-being of the government. The government of the United States also runs the world's largest military. That's not something that any business would want to, but it's important for the government to project power, to make sure that it stays on the top of the world and spreads the values that the United States believes in. The third mistake that Elon did are elections are not part of the business. When it comes to the government, you're constantly going from one election to another. There is not literally a period of time where you can stop worrying about elections. Trump won the presidency, But next year there are midterm elections, and Republicans are having a small, tiny majority both in the Senate and the House, and they have to prepare for those elections that are going to happen next year. If they lose them, then the next 2 years of Trump presidency will be absolutely worthless. But how can you possibly win elections when you're cutting costs? On one side, you have politicians who are promising to voters that when we become in power, when we get to power, we're going to increase your social security, and you go ahead and you cut spending, you will certainly lose the elections. That's not the mentality of what a business person would do. In business, you have to cut costs. You have to get rid of employees that are unprofitable, that are ineffective, because you want the stock price to go higher and you want the company to be more profitable. And that's why instead of relying on the government, it's far better for you to start investing, because you know for a fact that those CEOs will work super hard to get you rich and keep you rich. So approaching the government from a business mentality is not going to work no matter how hard you try, because it simply makes no sense or whatsoever. Does that mean that the national debt of the United States cannot be possibly fixed? Well, if you look at the history of the United States, there has been a period where the United States ran a surplus, and it wasn't that long ago. The last president that balanced the budget and had a surplus was President Clinton. It doesn't matter what you think about him. It doesn't matter whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. He ran a surplus. When he took the government, when he became the president, the government was running a deficit, and now you have a surplus. So how did Clinton manage to run a surplus and fix the national debt? First and most important thing, he increased the income tax from 31% to almost 40%. Now the government is making money from taxes. Secondly, he increased the corporate tax rate from 34% to 35%. A 1% increase might not seem a lot, but if you compare it to today's corporate tax rate of 21%, suddenly 35% seems a lot, which means that corporations paid a lot more taxes than they do right now. Thirdly, he made Social Security benefits taxable. You receive Social Security and you pay taxes on that, and that's a disciplinary measure. He reduced deductions. The government provides deductions in order to make sure that your taxable income goes down. If you're making $50,000 and you can have a $10,000 deduction, suddenly you're paying taxes not on $50,000, but your taxable income goes down to $40,000. He capped discretionary spending. He made sure that discretionary spending does not grow every single year. If you look at the military spending of the US, it increases year by year. But when you cap it, you do not allow it to grow no matter what happens, which allowed the government to cap spending to a certain level. And finally, he slowed down the growth of Medicare. In essence, what Clinton did is that he stopped spending from growing. On the other side, he increased taxes, and over a period of his entire presidency, he could achieve a budget surplus, which is the last time that the United States ever ran a surplus. Now, another time that the government was almost about to run a surplus was during Obama. When Obama became the president, he inherited an economy that fell into the greatest crisis of the 21st century. That was the first time when the United States introduced quantitative easing, which is massive printing of money in order to stimulate the economy to grow again. And that led the government to have a deficit of almost $1.5 trillion. But if you look clearly at this chart, over the next few years, the government started reducing that deficit, and by 2015, the deficit was less than $500 billion. Another 2 to 3 years, maybe the government would have actually achieved a surplus. First of all, he did not extend the tax cuts that Bush introduced. He also capped the discretionary spending, which means that the military spending during Obama did not increase that much. And finally, he increased taxes. The exact same thing that Clinton did. So it's a very normal thing. If you instantly increase taxes, you're not going to solve the problem. But over time, when taxes are high, more money will be flowing into the government. On the other side, you might not be able to reduce spending instantly, but if you keep spending at a certain level and keep increasing your revenue, you solve the problem. Imagine you're trapped in a debt trap and you are making $100,000, but you're spending $150,000. The best thing would be if you can cut spending. But let's say hypothetically, just like the government of the United States, you cannot cut spending. But if you keep your spending $150,000 and you keep increasing your revenue to $150,000, suddenly you can balance your books in a matter of a few years. The trend reversed in 2016 when Trump became the president. It's very clear in the chart. When Donald Trump became president, his theory was very different. I'm going to cut taxes as much as possible. Lower taxes are going to stimulate people to have more money in their pockets. They will spend more money and the economy is going to grow faster. That was the logic behind it. So he passed his tax cuts. First of all, he lowered down the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. You can already see what kind of impact that had on the budget of the government. Secondly, he lowered down income tax rate. It doesn't matter which bracket of the income tax you look at. Everybody's taxes were significantly slashed under Trump. And finally, he increased deductions. In fact, he doubled standard deductions, which means that everybody could lower down their taxable income significantly much more than they could do that previously. And that led to a huge deficit after that. Now, in theory, in a couple of years from then, the economy should have gone faster and that deficit should have been fixed. But in 2020, one of the major crises in the modern history of the United States happened, which is the COVID-19, and that forced the government to print trillions of dollars to save the economy. And that's where the deficit got entirely out of control. If you're going through a hardship, if you have to get to the hospital, it's fine to borrow money because when you get out of the hospital, then you can work super hard and pay all of those bills. But this is not what the United States is doing right now. This is when the US should cut spending and increase taxes. However, the current administration has passed the big beautiful bill, which means that Trump's tax cuts are going to become permanent. Secondly, there are not going to be taxes on tips and overtime. Thirdly, he is going to increase deductions. Fourthly, spending will be raised, and he's also not going to touch Social Security and Medicare. He made it clear that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid will not be touched, and taxes on multiple things such as overtime will be reduced, which means that if you're actually spending so much money and you're not ready to cut spending, what options does that leave you? What Elon Musk exactly has to cut in the government spending when you're not allowed to cut those spendings in the first place, where you don't have the power to reform some of the major expenses of the government? And this is probably why Elon Musk gave up on the idea on fixing the national debt, because it doesn't matter how hard he tries. He can save the government $100 billion, $200 billion, $300 billion. If government spending is going to keep rising and revenues are going to dry up on the other side, fixing this problem becomes absolutely meaningless, which is why he gave up on this idea, because this goal is absolutely impossible to achieve. And if Elon Musk believes that this problem is not going to be fixed anytime soon, what do you think is going to happen to the value of the dollar over time? It is going to keep sinking, and your real wages, your real savings are going to keep going down. And the next generation of Americans will pay off all of these debts whether they want that or not. There is literally no other option around it. The only way to save yourself is to start investing and build a solid portfolio that will grant you the financial freedom. And if you want to find out which stocks I'm buying, how am I investing, and what investing strategy do I follow, then there is a link in the description of this video that you can check out and find out more. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.